Hi, everybody, and welcome to Lady Liberty League. I am Sue DeRichko, one of the co-founders, along with my other co-founder, Laura Hudak. And our third co-founder, Tom Early, was unable to attend today. But today is August 13th, 2025, and it is a special meeting at 12 noon. So thank you to everybody who took your lunch break to come talk about and to listen to the issues that matter most to us in 2025, and from verified, qualified experts in their field. We are excited. Actually, before I go into our guest today, I do want to put in a small plug. We did have another special meeting last week, and we spoke with Patty Keene, registered nurse. And Patty was talking about some of the challenges working in a hospital system and facing those challenges through unionization. So if you would check out our YouTube channel, subscribe and watch that special meeting with Patty Keene, registered nurse. Today, we are happy to have Pat Espinoza, and Pat is an expert in his area of immigration law, and he is an immigration lawyer. And since he is a co-worker of one of our co-founders, Laura Hudak, I'm going to turn it over to Laura to please introduce our expert speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. Pat, we are thrilled to have you. You have an amazing bio. I just want to hit a few of the points for our audience here. Today, our speaker is Mr. Patrick Espinoza, who is managing partner of the law firm. If my high school Spanish, I probably will butcher this, but Sus Abogados Latinos is the firm. And what that means in English is your Latino lawyers. Pat was born in Germany to Colombian parents, has lived across the US and internationally, and has gained diverse experience that has shaped his work and his life today. Pat has accomplished a BBA in marketing, as well as a combined JD and MBA from the University of Miami. And Pat, you have focused on contract law, business formation, and management in the beginning of your career. Pat has experience working with the Colombian consulate on immigration and trade issues, and previously has even managed a successful sports agency. Pat, you moved to Ohio 10 years ago and immediately saw the need to help underrepresented immigrants in Northeast Ohio. In 2021, your firm was launched, and today it is still the first and only Hispanic branded and fully bilingual law firm in the entire state of Ohio. Pat, you specialize in immigration law, leveraging and bilingual abilities and immigrant background to represent clients all over the country. As Sue mentioned, in this capacity, I have had the pleasure and the opportunity to work with Pat on H-1B visa issues, and I can certainly attest to your experience, your expertise, and your professionalism. And in all of Pat's spare time, you are a very community-minded individual and serve on a number of boards, including the president of the Ohio Hispanic Bar Association. You serve on the boards of Global Cleveland, the Cleveland Metropolitan Bar Association, GCP, the Northeast Ohio Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, the Border Light Festival of International and Fringe Theater, and additionally, Pat is active on the diversity committees at Case Western Reserve University School of Law, as well as the Cleveland Metro Bar Association. So we have obviously a very, very well-respected expert here on immigration law with us today. So Pat, where I thought we might start, as Sue and I said, we both have a few questions for you, but most importantly, we want to hear you talk. And I thought, the starting point really is you have this very unique and special law firm. And I thought you might want to kind of kick off talking about the firm itself, your practice, and really how it's evolved and changed over the years. And, especially given, kind of where we're finding ourselves in 2025, what does that change mean to you and the other professionals that you're working with?
Well, thank you for the great introduction, Laura. And I'll give you just a bit of background how I got to Ohio. So I went and got my JD MBA from the University of Miami in Florida. And if you don't know, Miami has a pretty good football team most of the time, lots of national championships. With a couple of partners in business school, we opened up a sports agency and were able to take some players to the NFL. That's when I met my wife, who was originally from Ohio. I met her down in Miami. We were doing that for about 2 years, and we wanted to start a family. And we decided to leave Miami for Texas. And, I stopped being a sports agent and I was going to go into traditional corporate law. We moved to Fort Worth, Texas for a few months where unfortunately I had to take the bar exam again. So I passed in Florida, but you have to have 5 years of full-time practice experience to waive into the license. So I started studying for the bar, took the bar. The day after I took the bar, my father-in-law suffered a stroke. He made a full recovery, but my wife told me she wanted to move back home. So I said, let's go. So I moved up to Ohio, where I didn't have any friends, family. I didn't have a job, no professional network. Um, and I had to take the bar exam again. So 3 for 3. I started, once I got here, I started networking immediately. I remember I got here on a Sunday. That Thursday, I had already gone to an event for the Cleveland Metro Bar Association where I met now former Justice Michael Donnelly. He was giving a speech and I befriended him and we've been friends since. He helped me along the way. And so I started getting out. I helped with legal aid, every seminar I could attend. And I started noticing, there were a lot of Latinos, but there weren't any attorneys that spoke Spanish. Coming from Southern Florida and Texas, there's a plethora of Spanish speaking attorneys. So there's not really that need. So I started looking into it more. And about 10 years ago, I had, an idea and the dream to open up a Hispanic branded law firm where we'd have, Hispanic music playing, coffee served in the lobby. And I really started looking at the numbers. The numbers are quite drastic. And even I tell city leaders across the state what these numbers are, they say, oh my God. So, for example, from Toledo to Conneaut, there's over 180,000 Hispanics in that geographical range. And there are only about 20 to 30 attorneys that speak Spanish, with probably half of those in corporate law, another maybe 15 across that area that do immigration, family law, criminal defense. So not that many attorneys for the population. You go statewide, there are more than 540,000 Hispanics based on the last census. I'm sure it's higher now. And only 3% of the Ohio bar identifies as Hispanic. So there's this extreme need for people that need not just immigration. Immigration is the majority of what we do, but also family law, criminal defense. One, they don't, most of our clients don't speak English and they don't speak legalese. So it's almost a double barrier to getting good representation. So when we launched in 2021, for about a year, it was slow growth. And in 2022, we had extreme growth. We went from 3 employees. Now I have 3 attorneys and 10 on staff. Everybody is fully bilingual. We've had a lot of staff members, attorneys that were former interns. We take interns ranging from high school all the way to law school. We had 7 interns this last summer, hoping at least 2 will return as employees when they graduate law school. So we're very, very big on giving anybody a chance to prove themselves. And we've gotten really lucky with the interns that we've had. They've been great. They've been absolutely wonderful and kind of opens their eyes to what they can accomplish, because we don't give them, they're not shredding paperwork, they're not scanning, they're doing research, they're writing motions. I had a student from Hawken. I instructed her to help with a divorce separation agreement. She did such a fantastic job. I didn't make any edits and neither did the judge. And we're talking about a high schooler. So when you give these kids, something actually what they'll be doing in the field, they want to do it. They strive more. So yeah, we take interns all throughout the year. So it's not just a summer thing. We take winter ones. We take, every Friday. So, and we're looking to expand this concept of a Hispanic branded firm goes far past Ohio. To date, I've only found 2 other Spanish branded law firms. Those are in Southern California. One's called Los Defensores, the Defenders. In Spanish, they do criminal defense. The other one had a Spanish name that has nothing to do with law. So this concept, surprisingly enough, 2021 when we launched, this concept didn't exist. And these numbers of Spanish speaking and Hispanics exists everywhere across the Midwest and even into pretty much every part of the country that isn't New York, Los Angeles, Miami, Chicago, Dallas, Houston. So our plan is to open up and provide basic services, immigration, family law, criminal defense for people that need it nationwide. So that's our firm in a nutshell.
That's great. I mean, it's really impressive, Pat. So let's get into a little bit about what you see as the current state of immigration policy, specifically in Ohio. We know that you work, outside of Ohio as well. And to the extent that you can, specifically here in Northeast Ohio. So what are you seeing through the lens of your work, the lens of your clients?
So the number one biggest thing that's happened besides expanded enforcement operations is, and this you won't hear on the news, it's a little bit difficult to understand. It's rendered almost every undocumented immigrant in this country subject to detention without eligibility for bond. So policies made in several different ways as it's in terms of immigration. Of course, it's an executive branch. Immigration courts, an administrative court. It's not a Title III court. They're not real Title III judges. They're administrative hearing officers, and they have the basic title of lawyer as their government title. So they're not bound by the judiciary. So they can. The executive pushes the judges to decide certain things in certain ways. If they don't, there's been, I know Jennifer Payton. She was the assistant chief immigration judge in Chicago. She was a practitioner for a long time in Cleveland. She was summarily fired for giving a Democratic senator a tour of the court. She was on CBS with a couple other immigration judges, and their uppers are instructing them to decide cases in certain ways. So you have pressure from the executive branch going all the way down to the rank and file immigration judges to decide cases in certain ways. The other policy comes from the Board of Immigration Appeals, which is also an administrative court. They'll take appeals from immigration court and, depending on the circumstances, decide them a certain way. Most recently, there is a decision called Matter of Q. Lee, which states that anybody that has crossed undocumented or has been encountered at the border has been detained and is subject to detention and no eligibility for bond. The policy the government is taking is that immigration judges don't have jurisdiction to decide their bond. So what we're seeing is now people getting picked up and they're losing hope. So rather than be in jail for several months or detention several months, they'll just decide, hey, if I can't get bond, I'm just going to go back. No reason to be in detention. So this is affecting the vast majority of undocumented immigrants. It's sad. This is happening to people that are married to U.S. citizens. This is happening to people that have come in with a visa and then applied for asylum. We've had several instances of Customs and Border Protection pick up clients who have a receipt from USCIS that says, this is your asylum receipt. You're allowed to stay in the United States during the pendency of your application. And pretty much the Border Patrol is saying, we don't care. We're going to detain you, and you can try your case from the inside. And it's exceedingly difficult to try to detain cases. They generally put them in detention centers that are far away from city centers, so it's not easy to get to the clients. Of course, there's litigation surrounding this matter of Q. Lee, but still nothing yet. So right now we're seeing people being detained left and right, and without any possibility of being able to get out. So that's the single biggest thing that's affected us probably for the last 3 months right now. It's awful. It's awful.
It's awful.
And sometimes, and policy is changing so quickly. We'll tell clients, hey, this is our strategy, this is what we're going to do. And then it'll change a week later and say, oh, sorry, now we can't do this for you. And so it makes us look bad. The clients think we're not doing the right thing, but it's the constantly changing rules and policy that are, and honestly, I think it's purposely psychological warfare. People, I was just talking to my director of operations. I have a hearing next Wednesday. We were making sure her final hearing won't be for about 2 years. We made sure that she was able to get a work permit. There was some issues with her getting a work permit issued, make sure all her paperwork in order. We call her up to prep her, and she's like, you know what? No, I want to go back to Venezuela. I can't stand it here anymore. So we're seeing this a lot, and it's demoralizing. It's just sad.
Sue, you wanna jump in with a question?
Yes, thank you, Laura. Pat, thanks again for being here. In such a short time on this call, you've covered so much ground already, and it's clearly a dynamic issue at hand that impacts all of us. I took notes because as you're talking, you're just saying some really relevant and profoundly important things. And I want to maybe lead off by saying, when you had me at Michael Donnelly, not just an amazing colleague and friend, like he is a
I love
true
him.
heart of gold, amazing advocate for people, and his kindness and his intellect, it does not go unrecognized.
I love he's on the board of the Cleveland Metro Bar Association now too. So now I get to see him regularly. But it's funny. We when I moved to Ohio, I moved in May, and generally when you apply for the bar, it's long background checks. It takes 6 to 8 months to clear anybody. And at that meeting, I told him, I was like, hey, I moved here for this reason. I'm trying to study for the bar. And he goes, hey, I'm on the board of bar examiners. Let me see what I can do. And unfortunately, he couldn't push it through. And I was forced to take it in February. And it was actually really funny because I buttoned again, and one of the questions on the essay questions, he had written. And not only does he write them, he grades, being on the board, he grades the student responses. So I told him, well, hey, good question. He goes, how'd you do? I was like, I did real well. I got a 6 out of 7. And then when I was licensed, he was the first judge I practiced in front of. And then from there, we, very, very good friendship. So.
Well, I do have a question, but I had to at least give my support and show of approval because he is truly an advocate and an ally in every kind of sense that you could ever want or need. So yes, definitely a great person. I recognize that you said from Toledo to Conneaut, there's 180,000 Hispanics, at least to the most current census, and only 20 to 30 historically Hispanic speaking lawyers. And thank you for creating this initiative and this firm in 2021 to employ fully bilingual lawyers for not just immigration needs, criminal defense needs, and other. So my question in that is, I was recently on a call with Indivisible Central Ohio, and they had advocates for folks who find themselves in really precarious situations, especially when they don't speak English and when they are held in detention centers. And oftentimes, this was Central Ohio, in rural areas, there have been reports, and on this call specifically, of individuals being released from immigration detention in remote areas without money, without food, without transportation, with not a dollar in their pocket, with no access to phones or even clean clothing, being released with the clothing that they were brought in wearing. So my question to this, because you started to touch on it in your intro, what kind of legal protection exists for these very vulnerable individuals upon release, and how could the system be improved to ensure humane treatment and access to these are basic necessities. So I'm not only a city councilwoman, I'm also a nurse, and I can't help but see the humanity and the missing piece of giving people basic human needs?
So interesting question. I'm going to assume a couple of things here. If they were talking, before June when they were releasing people, they would release them. Let me think about that. Because my experience with Cleveland ICE office has been very good. Um, they've been professional. I haven't had, just because geographic areas, not as much interaction with the Columbus ICE office. There's two ways that people would be released. We're talking historically because now no one's being released. They're either released on bond, or they're released on their own recognizance by ICE. Um, on bond, they would have an attorney present. It's almost, I've never heard of a bond case being won for an immigrant in detention without an attorney. Very, very, very hard to do. And the other way would be they're released from the Central ICE Processing Center in Brooklyn Heights. It's I haven't heard too much about immigrants being released without. I've heard they've been released without money, and usually in our experience, when they're released on bond, the jail staff will tell them, "Hey, are they gonna?" They'll give them right to the bus station, but they're not going to pay for the bus ticket. Generally, it's the families um, that go with the attorney through the jails um, to accomplish this. So my experience is a little bit different than what you just asked and what you just said. There's 5 different detention centers right now. I think a 6th opening up in Ohio. They're here in Geauga, which is the best one. They're actually very professional. We can actually call in when we need to speak to the clients and they'll patch us through. That is absolutely not a possibility in any of the other detention centers. You have the Northeast Ohio Correctional Center, you have Mahoning County, you have Seneca County, you have Morrow County, and Butler County, with all different levels of professionalism and cleanliness. Seneca County is awful. It's very rural. It takes two hours to get out there. Uh, Clients, they constantly complain about it's dirty. They don't clean it. It smells bad. The food's horrible. Clients in Geauga, they say it's not too bad, and they actually have a text message system to where they can actually talk with people outside. So it varies all throughout Ohio, and I imagine all throughout the country. So from what you're saying, they may be isolated detention centers where this is happening, but frankly, I haven't experienced too much of what you just said.
Well, great. That's reassuring that at least in the more heavily or densely populated areas surrounding Toledo, Cleveland, I'm going to assume Cincinnati, probably around Columbus area, that there's a little bit more oversight and better conditions. I think their concern was more in those rural areas.
It's
When you kind of piling on there, one of the things I was thinking about is as we were preparing for today is, we're all watching the news, depending on what you watch. I tend to watch a lot of MSNBC if I'm watching the television. And we're seeing, what's happened in Los Angeles and Florida, Texas. I mean, where it just seems, well, to use Sue's word, so inhumane. We hear at Los Angeles maybe especially about ICE agents waiting outside Home Depots, picking up construction workers. I mean, what level of that is happening in Ohio? And is it happening and could it happen here?
Fortunately, it hasn't happened in Ohio. I believe what we're seeing in the news is the president penalizing Democratic cities and states. You're generally not seeing these types of masks, ICE agents in riot gear. that hasn't happened in Ohio yet. I don't know if we'll see it in Ohio. I know yesterday the Department of Justice released their sanctuary state, county, and city lists, which includes, I believe, 32 different jurisdictions. I would expect to see it in those, but I believe that's politically motivated, absolutely, and unprofessional. I to date haven't seen anybody wear a mask. Um, for the most part, all the officers have been cordial. And what's different about some of those cities like Los Angeles, where you see ICE agents on the front lines, Ohio's a little bit different right now. So ICE right now is administrating deportation. They're generally not doing street raids. So ICE is not the only federal agency. Um, we are seeing, and I'll go into what I've seen in court. We have FBI, we have ATF, we have HSI, Homeland Security Investigations, which technically is under ICE, but they'll wear HSI badges. You have the U.S. Marshals. Um, you'll have DEA. They're using all federal agencies to be the street level people detaining immigrants. Um, I saw it, and I never thought in a million years I'd see it with my own eyes. Federal agents in the federal courthouse outside of the immigration courts, waiting to detain people. It breaks your heart because you have a lobby full of people, and you have 3 or 4 of these federal agents that they have several sets of handcuffs on their belts. They have they don't have the full riot gear, but they'll wear sometimes a bulletproof vest. Mostly they're dressed just in cargo pants and a flannel and trucker hats. But you can imagine the fear that they instill people, and they're not telling anybody who they're taking. And I'll pigeon tail into something else right there with a lot of these courthouse detentions. Under the Biden administration, the policy was that if someone was here longer than 10 days, they wouldn't be subject to what's called expedited removal, which is a deportation procedure without the right to be in front of an immigration judge and without the right to file an asylum application. They will have what's called a credible fear interview. If they pass a credible fear interview, they may be sent in front of an immigration judge. When President Trump took over, they changed that to 2 years. So we have immigrants that have come in the last 2 years that are not eligible for they're subject to expedited removal. So what we were seeing happen was immigrants that are in front of a judge, if they have a case in front of the judge and they'd been here less than 2 years, what the ICE attorneys were doing, they would file a motion to dismiss. The judges would terminate the proceedings, and then you'd have a federal agent detain them, and they would be subject to expedited removal, and they'd be gone within a couple days. And that's what I was seeing at the immigration court. And there's people that are not subject to that are just as scared as people that may be subject to that. And it's not humane to put people in that kind of fear.
Well, it's so against, kind of the diversity and the tapestry that so many of us want in the United States with people, with all kinds of people. And the impact on the economy is, I think is starting to be felt, but my perspective on it is it's just gonna get even worse. And
Let me cut into
yeah.
The psychological warfare part of this has gotten so bad that I have 2 United States citizens that are on retainer in case they are somehow denaturalized. That they are, and we're talking about. I'm not so scared, but I have a client who was born on the same Air Force base as me in Germany. My father was born a citizen. So I'm in kind of the same boat as he was, but he still has a fear that maybe some policy goes through that if something happens, we're right there to take his call. So we're seeing even citizens, natural born citizens, people that haven't been naturalized, are scared of where some of these policies are going.
So, I mean, Sue, you jump in as well. I mean, one of my questions, and this is, as the situation that you've helped us with, Pat, my own organization. And you feel so helpless. I mean, I think even if you are an attorney right now, specializing in immigration matters, I imagine many of you feel helpless in many of these situations as well. I mean, so making it really specific, and for a lot of people, it might not even be quite this specific, but if I was sitting in my office and someone walked in from immigration, and my organization has a legal young professional on an H-1B visa. Pat's firm worked on it. I keep her file close by. Everything is electronic on my computer because I really kind of live in fear that something's going to happen with her. Like, what would I do? What would anybody do if you were approached in your workplace or in a store or in your home, anywhere, in a church? I mean, because now even churches are not
So
off
what
base
we're
anymore.
seeing, and it's a procedure it's always been used. They're just using it a little bit more now. Generally, and this comes from experience, ICE or other federal agencies, they they usually detain people in public places, generally when they're getting out of their car at their home or at their office.
Hmm.
We're not seeing so much as raids in individual workplaces, although, you know, of course, there's the exceptions where there's, farms and there's many undocumented. Um, if they have let me go with the two different types of warrants. There is the administrative warrant, which comes from DHS, and then there's the federal warrant, which comes from, in our case, the Northern District of Ohio. I start there because I say that if federal agents have a federal warrant signed off by a United States district judge, there's not much you can do. The due process has been given, and if it's signed off by a judge, uh, there's generally a reason that they issue those warrants. um, I've only seen a handful of those in all our cases. Um, Most of the other ones are just the administrative warrants where there's been some surveillance on a specific immigrant, and the agents will go in and they'll, if it's in public, they do have the authority to detain that person. They generally know who they're going after, but what they're doing at the same time, and this happened in the Mexican restaurant case in Coventry, where they went after one guy and they ended up taking six. So these agents are asking immigrants what their legal status is, and most of them will always say, "Oh, no papers." And once a federal agent will determine someone is here undocumented, then they do have the ability to detain them. What most of these immigrants don't know is they don't have to respond. Um, they can walk away. Um, if there's on the street, if there's someone that asks what your immigration status is, they don't have to answer. Let's say a uniformed police officer comes over and asks you. Generally, you do have to present an ID, but a police officer is not going to be worried about the immigration part of it. But most immigrants, if they're not subject to the arrest warrant, they can just walk away. And for the most part, these federal agents won't detain them. Of course, there's going to be violations. Um, that's unavoidable. But we're seeing that most people are caught in the net around a person that where a warrant's been issued. So that's what I tell people. I was like, you don't have to respond; you can just walk away. So
Yeah. So for an employer, I mean, that sort of traditional, and this could apply in any environment, hospitals. I mean, you as the manager or HR professionals, I mean, the first line, the first question is, do you have a warrant?
yes,
It sounds like, okay.
and for
Yeah.
other employers too, they can do I-9 audits, um, which they're a little bit harder to get around than a specific warrant for a specific person. Um, if you have an I-9 audit, employers are required to hand that over, and um, in those cases, there may be other agents, and kind of the same thing. They'll go after, they always profile, so they'll go after the people that don't look, blonde hair, blue eyed, and they'll get them that way. But that's a little bit more difficult with the I-9 audits. But again, I haven't had one happen with a client, and I've heard of very few happening this year.
That's good. Thank you. Sue, I'm gonna turn it back over to you.
Great, thanks, Laura. So, Pat, you have brought up more than once now the psychological warfare, and it's not just you saying it that provokes these thoughts and questions. I'm sure not just for me, but anyone on the call or watching. It's definitely a tactic. It's definitely very real, and it's happening. You have two clients who you said are natural born citizens on retainer out of fear, because of the racial profiling and because of the widening range of authority that's being assumed. You brought up a very relevant example in Cleveland Heights in Coventry. They were going after one and they detained 6 or 7 individuals. It leads my mind into a deeper concern and maybe a need for clarity. In my research and looking things up, I came across a case that provoked the Flores Agreement, and it was to specifically protect young children, and it was based on the harsh conditions of a 15-year-old girl, I think back in the 80s, and her experiences. And the Trump administration has lifted that Flores Agreement, which limits the conditions and the duration of detention for children and teenagers. What is your outlook on that, and what is the potential impact on the welfare of some of our most vulnerable, the children?
So let me tell you two things. What I've seen here in Ohio, for the most part, um, from experience, the federal government is, at least I'm talking up here. It's going to be different. I'll talk about Texas in a second. Up here, they're generally not trying to detain underage children. They will place them with another agency if there's no immediate family member or friend. So what I've seen here in Northern Ohio has been really good. I haven't seen many harsh conditions for underage children or unaccompanied children. The immigration court, when unaccompanied minors or underage people are in removal proceedings, I'm very happy to report, and I think a lot of people on this call will feel a little bit better about this. There's a specialized docket here in the Cleveland Immigration Court for minors, and it is handled a lot different than the docket for people over 18. You found the judges to be very sympathetic. You find the government attorneys to be very sympathetic as well. I can tell you I've had many, many, many underage people in front of the court on this docket. The judges are going out of the way to make sure that the children are not scared, that they, will get their due process. So if I had to say one good thing about immigration is at least in Cleveland, I can't tell you about other jurisdictions. They are treating the children with dignity, and they're not making them scared of these proceedings, which is good.
That's encouraging in Cleveland, and that's encouraging in Ohio. And I think, like you noted, and I love your optimism when it comes to our Northeast Ohio and Ohio broadly. but also recognizing Ohio is a very deeply red state legislatively. And so we may not be a target at this point from our current administration like some of the blue states are. I guess my larger question would be, why would the administration lift those protections of the Flores agreement, and how would that impact blue states now, and then potentially, like all things bad, wind its way over even to our red state?
It's pure, they're de-incentivizing people to cross. You know, parents want their children to have, you know, the best life they can. That's why we have so many unaccompanied minors, and it's another part of the psychological warfare. If you know you're going to put your child in more danger than not, then you're not going to send your child across the border. I believe it is truly just to de-incentivize border crossings. Let me go back to the Texas detention centers for minors. That's a different situation. They have enormous detention centers where there's several hundred children, you know, who are only loosely supervised, where there's a lot more harsh conditions. We don't have that much of a problem because we're, you know, pretty far north, but some of those harsh conditions could exist on some of the border states. But yeah, plain and simple, it's to keep people from crossing. And we look at the numbers. I believe in the last 2 months there have been only roughly, and you know, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe only they've apprehended somewhere between 3,000 or 4,000 people at the southern border each month, and they haven't let any in. So you immediately see, you know, why they're taking that strategy. So they're taking away people's hope that they can get ahead, and that's simply what they're doing.
And it sounds like you are somewhat, and God willing, will remain in a little bit of a secure or protective existence here because of geography. But some other immigration attorneys are facing fear of retaliation and sanctions if they are attempting to delay certain deportations. Could you maybe speak to that? And do you ever have those fears that it could wind its way into our red state of Ohio, and
Oh,
what and the work you're doing
it
could be
has wound its way a
compromised?
little bit. I'll tell you, just yesterday in court, I had a nice attorney in open court accuse me of malpractice. um,
Wow.
yeah, that's I'm not worried about it. It's a situation where there was an application for relief that we didn't file it 2 years ago because we didn't know that um, certain there's a mother and a father. The mother has the kids. We didn't, and the mother's a citizen. We didn't realize that there, you know, could be potential abuse issues there. So obviously that's why we didn't file the certain application for relief. But um, you're seeing the ICE attorneys start to they become emboldened. Um,
Mhm.
what they don't realize is that their bar licenses are governed by the bar association's grievance committees, which tend not to like when attorneys try to use those tactics in court. So I think we'll see it more until there's some pushback. You know, there's we have groups, we have our union, ALA, other social media groups of immigration attorneys, and you know, we see the horror stories, but we try to, you know, stay unified and help each other where we can. Um, Tell all the other immigration attorneys, you know, things that are happening in other courts, policies that are, you know, being implemented. So, um, fortunately, we do have a good network of immigration attorneys across the country that really will help each other out so that we can, you know, fight back these new policies. But
And I am typically not that dark cloud and trying to rain on your comfort or confidence or get in the way of the work you're doing. But I have increasing cynicism, especially, you know, you referenced something that would have brought me comfort historically, and that's your union protection. But now, increasingly so, unions are being attacked. Our rights, our First Amendment rights to of association and to collectively bargain are under attack. And union busting is at an all-time high. You know, our federal workers now have lost their union protection. That is hundreds of thousands of union brothers and sisters. So when we attack one and we dismantle one, who's next and where does it end?
So for immigration attorneys, I use the term union just because it's a little bit easier to classify the kind of group. There's no specific rights that we get. There's no collective bargaining agreement because everybody's just an individual attorney in private or pro bono practice. So very little that the government could do to, keep us from, talking to each other and letting us know what's going on. So that's a little bit different than what you're seeing with a lot of the other different kinds, the traditional kinds of unions in this country. So, no, we
Thanks
just
for the clarification on that term.
sorry.
But it does lead me to my next thought, and I think Laura could probably predict where I'm going. I mean, it's not unlike what happened with Paul Weiss. You have this false sense of security and brother sisterhood, whether it's union or it's private, until you don't, and until it capitulates or
So
until the fear becomes too immense.
So fortunately, and I asked this specific question when Bill Bay came in to talk about the rule of law at the CMBA. He's the president of the ABA. Sorry. So they have finally a little bit delayed in response to Paul Weiss and a couple other firms that have been attacked. There is plans to fight back. And the specific thing I asked was, my firm, we're 10. We're not a Paul Weiss that has billions in revenue. So what if the federal government does come after me? I don't have the resources to fight. Well, the ABA is there to fight for the little guys. Because I specifically, I was like, what happens if the government comes after me? It was like, well, as a member of the ABA, you have the protections and the backing of our network. So we'll see it start rolling out here probably over the next couple of months. But the ABA is doing something about it.
You are our last stop. I mean, just not to put the pressure on you, but you are our last facet of hope in a system of government that is crumbling quickly. It is our judicial branch and system that we are putting all of our hope and stock in law. And so I want to desperately believe the ABA when they answered your question that way.
They did. I was very pleased and very pleased and very honored that the ABA would come to Cleveland to start what they're going to be going around nationwide, explaining to other bar associations what we're doing to uphold the rule of law.
Just to echo Sue, I mean, I watch these stories daily about what the attorney generals are doing in the blue states, and I just have this unbelievable appreciation for them and for attorneys in general, because I also agree it's the only thing that I feel is keeping us together right now as a country.
Yes.
Well, Pat, did you have any more? I mean, we're now past our time, 1:02. Pat, we try to keep these to an hour. This has been incredible. You are amazing. I think for all of you on the call, and for Sue especially, I mean, I've been talking about asking you to come on, and because I knew how important this conversation would be, and you certainly did not disappoint.
Thank you.
Pat, do you have any final comments you wanted to make, that anything that you didn't get to say that you think is just important to say out loud, and then we'll wrap up.
The one thought that goes through my mind, I really hope this is for show, and midterm elections couldn't get here soon enough because
Yeah.
um, I am hoping that there's going to be a change in policy running up to the midterm elections, because I think we all know what's going to happen at the midterms. Um, so maybe we'll get some power back. Maybe we can get some hope back. I try to stay optimistic.
Yeah.
Yes, we've had some clients deported, but we're also getting wins. We're getting little wins and we're getting big wins, and I'm going to keep my head up and keep fighting, and I'll take every win that I can get. And I'm more than happy to come on in like 6 months and let you know, or 8 months, to see what has changed, if anything, if it's gotten worse, if it's gotten better. Because generally we take it day by day, but we can see the way the policy is going. So
There is so much, and it happens at such rapid fire succession, so quickly, ever changing. I would love it if you can come on in 6 hours, because every time I open an article, I think my eyes can't believe what it's seeing over and over again. But thank you. And I won't close, Laura. You close. This is your friend. But I personally want to say thank you. Laura is right. You are amazing. You are approachable. You're positive. You're optimistic. The work you're doing from 2021 to now, and having 10 fully bilingual attorneys, definitely representing the 180,000 Hispanic people in our corner of the world here in Northeast Ohio. Tremendously grateful to you and your efforts. Thank you.
thank you for having me.
Yeah, I don't think I could any more wonderful words, Pat. Just thank you again. We are absolutely going to be staying in touch. And for this purpose, we would love to get you back in a few months. So you will be hearing from us again. All right. In the
Sounds good. I
meantime,
look forward to it.
please know that the work that you're doing is unbelievably appreciated, and you've got a lot of kind of cheerleaders behind you, kind of pushing you to keep going as much as you're able to.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yes.
All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Have a
Thank
good
you,
day.
everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.